to Jelly Trumpet.
So I'm with David Baldwin of Baldwin and this is our bonus track on Jelly Trumpet. So you were saying, tell me about this songwriting book, you said.
Yeah, well, there's a book by Jeff Tweedy of Wilco, and it's called How to Write One Song. But Jim, it's about so much more than that. And it's there's 3 books that I've read on writing that I really, really love. One is Stephen King's book on writing. And
yeah, I've read that.
Fantastic book. And he really lets you into his process. But Jeff Tweedy is writing a book about hey, let's write a song together. Let's just write a song. But what he does is, and it's a lot of the things that I hear you talking about on the show. He talks a lot about the discipline of writing things down. He talks a lot about his job as a songwriter. So he lives at home. He doesn't have an office, but he goes up into his attic and he writes songs every day at a certain time through a certain time. He literally hits the clock, goes, he's a 9 to 5 songwriter, but he works at his house, you know? And he talks a lot about the discipline. There's a lot of the love of language and throwing lists together of words that don't belong together and making connections and how that transforms ordinary into just really, it takes it into new places that you would just never think about.
Did he,
if you just, yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, if you just sat and wrote, if you just sat and thought with your fingers, on a typewriter, or just thought with your fingers, like he's really he's really got this down into sort of alchemy in the book. It's a fantastic book. You can read it in a couple hours.
Read it without wanting to be a songwriter. You're just going to learn about creating.
Yeah, but it makes you want to write a song. And in fact, it got me back into songwriting.
So, I do want to write a song. I've never been musical. So have you written anything and there's so many things I'm going to talk to you about, David, but the songwriting, etc. With your band, the Gumbies, that's right, isn't it? The Gumbies?
Yes, the Gumbies. Yep.
The Gumbies. Is it a collaboration between you and the songwriting? It always fascinates me between the music and the lyrics.
Yes. Well, it's my partner, James Thompson, and I, who grew up together in El Paso, Texas, and have reunited after 40 years. He lives in Fort Collins, so it's a virtual band, but we're putting music out. Yeah. He's one of those guys that's a fearless composer, and I'm a fairly fearless composer as well. And what I mean by that is we're not neither of us are afraid to be stupid and throw out a really bad idea. I think that there's a real power in throwing out bad ideas. When you're collaborating with somebody, and it's the yes and, right? It's you just keep yes anding an idea until it's not good or it's good, and you save judgment until it's done.
Yeah,
and then you go, that sucks.
It's not. That sucks. Yeah. It's like if you've done a lot of acting, etc. You usually start off with things like status play and then block and accept.
Yeah.
So you learn that positivity about just letting the ideas run and see what happens, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you right back, because in our 12 questions, you talked about everything stemming from being a copywriter.
Yeah.
So how did you get into copywriting?
Yeah. So when I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and my mother was a head of a media department at an advertising agency. And so I grew up from a very young age knowing it was a possibility as a career. And I think a lot of people they don't even think about it as that's a thing, that's a job.
Yeah.
And I, when I was 10, I knew that was a job and I thought that was cool. And I would go in on the weekend with her or something and go like, who are those people in the back with the cool tables that are drawing stuff? Like, what's that, And that just really said kind of to me, like, I really think that's a path of using your wits and being creative to make a living. I had no idea where it would take me. And then I was also a musician, and trying to make a living doing that as I got older. And I had an agreement with myself that if I didn't think I could make a living as a musician by the time I was 19, I would go all in on advertising. That's what I did. What's wonderful about, am I going too long?
No, sorry. I forgot to turn off my messaging on my computer.
Okay.
Bugger it. Never mind. Carry on.
What's wonderful about advertising as a career is it opens up opportunities to do anything you want. I imagine there's a chartered accountant out there who's a fantastic poet, but advertising encourages it. If you're in the advertising business, like, it encourages you to, it's an industry full of people with cool things in their drawer, like that there's a script or a book or poetry or drawings or paintings. Like, that's just what we are.
What's the emotion that you had like that? Because most people, I've never met a copywriter who wanted to be a copywriter. They come from another direction. Yeah. Whereas with me, I was thinking, well, why didn't David, he's got this interest in writing. Why didn't he think to become a novelist or a lyricist or a playwright? Why copywriting and advertising?
Well, I think I had a self-awareness of what I was good at. Yeah. I would say it that way. And by the way, I have a great admiration and love for great copywriting. It is a skill unto itself to be good briefly, to say something that exposes a human truth or an insight in a often pithy way. It's a skill. It's a skill that I see writers all the time who can't do it, like really good writers who can't do it.
It's an emotional thing, Yeah. My business, my central business, is about conversion optimization. Right. And the key to that is, like, once you've got the delivery sorted out, if it's a product, then you're right. Yeah. But no, it's about the emotional hook. It's about telling stories. It's about honesty in a way. And that, even down to micro copy, which I like, there's that old thing that's supposed to be said by Hemingway, isn't it? Tell us a story in 6 words. Yeah, right. Baby shoes, for sale, never worn. Yeah. And that's supposed to be one of and it is fantastic because there's 3 acts in that. And that to write 3 acts and gain an emotion at the end. It's like a koan when things change at the end. But I'm going to go back now because I'm just absolutely fascinated with that, with the How to Write a Song book. What was his name? Jeff
Tweedy. Tweedy.
D-Y, right, okay. Did he talk in there, because this fascinates me as well, about the cut-up technique?
I don't know. Talk about the cut-up technique?
So the cut-up technique was usually, I heard about it first reading about David Bowie, but I think he took it from Dylan. And the idea was that they would cut up pieces from newspapers, from magazines, etc. And David Bowie actually cut out bits from his own journal, so bits of his writing. I don't know how long, 3 to 5 words, maybe 7 a sentence. Yeah. And so he cut them up and turned them over, and then he picked them up at random. So he was creating juxtapositions by a mechanical method instead of doing it in his head, which fascinates me.
He did actually talk about that. I don't believe he called it that, but what he talked about was he would often write, Jeff Tweedy would often write music, write the songs, write the lyrics, and then take it, cut the lines up, and then scatter them to the wind. So it's the same thing.
But do you think, as a creative, do you think that's cheating?
No, I think it's brilliant. And I don't think there's any such thing as cheating. And in fact, one of the songwriting techniques that I learned from somebody that I love, I think it's great, is sit down stupid and try to play a song that you love, and you'll write a song that's different. It's very strange, and I can't explain it beyond that. But if you go, I don't know how this song goes, I don't know how to play it, I don't know what key it's in, but I've got my guitar and I'm going to try to play it right now. And you try to play it and it doesn't come out. What comes out is something else because you actually don't know the song. Yeah. And it's a really great way to refoundation a song and create something new that the person hearing it that wrote the song would never know. Now, I'm not talking about take the 1-4-5, progression and apply it to the song. That happens all the time. But it is a really, really interesting way. A great example would be, I'm going to take Here Comes the Sun. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to play it. No, unfortunately I kind of do know how to play it because I can hear it, but like, I don't know how to play that song. So I'm just going to start trying to play it and something weird will come out. It's really strange. Now, I don't think that's cheating personally.
No. I think the cut-up thing, I was being provocative, David.
No. I think it's a really great thing. And what I love about your question is I want to give people permission to do that, because your judgment comes in later where you go, oh, I just ripped off Here Comes the Sun. Like, I can't do that. But come to that conclusion when it's done. Like, the analogy that I would use is dancing, right? You learn dance steps, you go, I love that song, I want to dance to that song. Like, you don't plan it all out. I'm not talking about actual like Broadway dancers or people who do have choreography. I'm talking about unchoreographed joy dancing where you're creating a moment. That's what creativity can be, where you're just going to enjoy the dance. You don't start dancing to finish dancing.
Yeah.
Right? You don't go, all right, let's get this song on the road so I can be done with it. That's not what you do. You go out and you dance. But you're putting together collective experience and learned, things that you've learned, things that your body has sort of memory, body memory, your muscle memory has absorbed, and then you apply it. And that's what I mean. So that's what you're doing with some of those, what'd you call it? Cut up?
Cut up. Yeah, they call it cut up.
Yeah, that's what that is. I think that's great. And by the way, coming up with an idea for a song is 90% of it. It's like just having the idea. It's like, I can't tell you how much music I have with no lyrics because I couldn't think of an idea for it, that I just go like, oh, I shelve it. And I go, I'll come back to it,
I wanted to talk briefly about books again, because we've touched on this one, on like how to write a song. And you talked about Stephen King's book on writing, which I think is very good.
Yeah.
By the time I came to read this, and I'm not being arrogant, I'd learned all of those things. He's brought together a lot of things from other writers besides his own, and he is a brilliant man. And I'm not, no disrespect intended whatsoever. But there are two other books, one of which might interest you, that are interesting. One is called On Becoming a Writer by Doretha Brand. Mm-hmm. And that is more about the discipline of writing. So, for example, she goes into, this is quite an old book, she talks about how to warm up your hands before using the typewriter.
Yeah.
But she also talks about making an appointment to write, which is something that I did for a long time. So it's like 4:30 in the afternoon, I immediately start writing. And I'm going to go for 10 minutes. And I had these school exercise books, which I would write in, and I'd write the most incredible rubbish. But I did it every day. And then I extended it to an hour and a half, etc. And I would write complete rubbish. Every so often, there'd be a line that would be useful. But it's the discipline of making your mind focus at a particular time that I liked. So that was all about the structure of creativity and getting into the mode. The other one's by a poet and Buddhist called Natalie Goldberg. And she wrote a book called Writing Down the Bones. This is more about the true creativity. It's all about writing from yourself. And, and it's full of short essays that you can just ignore, or you can use the examples in there to write. It gives you start. It's a book that you can go back to if you're feeling like I need a refresh, etc.
I love that. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So it's nice to have you sort of in your armory. The interesting thing, one of the most interesting things in her book, she describes where writers write from, which I think must be the same for all creatives.
Right.
Because a lot of people think, oh, it's the head, it's a very intellectual exercise. And she says, no, it's not that. It's, from the heart, it's the center of emotion. No, she says, it's from the gut. Because the gut has a primitive brain. I can't remember what it's called.
It does, yeah.
So what she was saying is that she noticed, she did a lot of writing classes, is that when people were into it and into their writing, they would all be crouched over from the stomach and writing like that.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of place I'd like to get to.
I love that. One of my little songwriting secrets as well, and I sound like I'm like some amazing songwriter, but one of the things I like to do is walk around while I'm doing it. I put a guitar strap on and I just walk around and create. And it's something about the ambulation of just walking around, man. It does something. It's really weird, but it does. You can't do that on a piano, but you can do it on a guitar, or you can just kind of walk around and.
So is that within your home or where you are or outside?
Yeah. Whatever your space is, you can kind of just stand around, walk around, and it opens. It does something to me. I don't know. It does something to me.
Does it come? Does both the music and the lyrics come when you, or is it always the music and then it just fascinates me?
It's not any one thing. Sometimes it's the melody and then you got to find the actual music, and sometimes it's I have a line and I got to figure out what to do with it. Yeah. And the one wonderful tool is called Brain Toss. Do you know about Brain Toss?
No, tell me about that.
Brain Toss is an app that I think any creative person should have on their phone. And you can even set it. I'll show you what here's this is not going to be good for your audience, but I'm going to show you. So this is my phone.
Yeah.
I double tap the back.
Yeah.
So that's Brain Toss. So what Brain Toss lets you do is I can pick picture. I can take a picture of something. I can write a note, or I can leave a voice memo.
Yeah.
And what it does is you've selected an email in advance. So it just sends it right to your email. So double tap and I go, I want to write a song called Third Time's a Charm. Like the idea is Third Time's a Charm. Okay, got it. You know, there's a song on our upcoming EP called Third Time's a Charm, and it's about my parents being married 3 times, right? Okay. And that came from Soundtrap. I just had that idea, and I was like, I don't know what to do with it, but I think that would be a fun topic, you know. But what's great about it, like when I'm writing for work, if I'm thinking of headlines, you know, you cannot help but you're like driving and you're like, oh God, that's a great line, but you're driving and you can't write it down. Mm-hmm. So brain toss, boom, there it is. You just say it into the little mic and it goes right in your email.
I'm getting that.
It's a great tool.
Getting that, definitely, because it's surprising, you know, where you ask people, when do the ideas come to you? And like, I've talked about the structure before focusing to you. For me, it's driving or stepping into the shower. Not actually in the shower, the act of breaking the threshold of stepping into the shower. And it's just, and the first glass of wine of the evening. That sometimes works for me as well.
My understanding is that these things have actually been researched, and walking around is one of them, by the way. When you go for a walk, your brain starts working on the problem. And I think it's just your subconscious is put into a safe space somehow to express itself. But I don't know. I know there's been research done on that exact phenomenon.
Yeah, it does sound familiar to me. I mean, I will do some research and write a blog post about it, perhaps. Now, to wrap up, even though we will have a follow-up conversation because this is just such fun, and I'm learning loads and loads and loads. So we talked earlier in the 12 questions interview about creativity and where it came from, blah blah. And there was 2. Not disparate things, but 2 combination things that interested me. One, how much you like constraints to a project.
Yes.
And creating tension.
Yes.
Which I thought was a lovely way of putting it, because the constraints create the tension. But staring into the fear. Would you like to expand on that and perhaps some examples of some of your work?
Sure. That fear can come, you know, it's I have to qualify that it's, you know, ad guy fear. It's not real fear that, you know, that people are going through all over the world right now. I think the way we, you know, your constraints, especially now in the business, we don't have the budgets we used to have. We don't have the time we used to have. We don't have some of the tools that we used to have. Like you're both, you can do everything and nothing. Like that's one of the things I think about the modern sort of advertising industry. Is that, like, there's so many platforms now to tell your story, to do things. There's so many ways to get to people. Some of them are horrendous, using data, things like that. But you know, you're given a problem to solve. I have to solve this problem. And back in the day, and when I got in the business, it would be like, hey, I need 3 print ads. That's super clear. Got it. 3 print ads. I'll do it. I will do that. You know. Now it's like, hey. You know, we've got to drive trial for this product and we don't have any money, and we've only got a month. So, and by the way, and we only have $25,000 to do it. Yeah. So what we really need you to do is something super creative, you know? So an example of that would be, years ago, we were working on Krispy Kreme, which is I don't know if you know about Krispy Kreme.
Oh yeah. I know that brand. Yeah.
We had that account for about 4 years. The issue was they needed to drive a project. It was called 12-12-12. It was called Day of the Dozens, and it was launched on 12-12-12, right? So December 12th. And the whole idea was on December 12th, you can get, for every dozen donuts you buy, you get a free dozen. And so churches would come in and buy, like, you know, for fundraising, they'd buy like 100 dozen and get, you know, 100 extra ones. So that made a lot of sense on 12-12-12, but by 12-12-16, it started to make less sense, right? But they still had the promotion, and they said, you know, we have, I don't remember the money, but it wasn't very much money. And they said, we think what we're going to do is drop an FSI into our top 5 markets, and we know that we can, you know, if we get a 4% conversion, we'll make blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, but they only had X amount of money. I'm trying not to disclose details because they would not want me to, but they didn't have enough money to really do it. Okay. And so that's scary. Like, that's okay. You got 3 days to figure this out. You got to come up with an idea in 3 days, right? And so I love that. Like, that's okay. Got it. I no, not enough money, not enough time, can't do anything. Let's go, you know? So then you start looking at ideas, and the idea that we came up with was to create have you ever been to a Krispy Kreme?
No, they're sold here in like units within the supermarket.
So over here in the Krispy Kreme store, they have a thing, they call it donut theater, but it's basically the donuts on a conveyor belt going through like a waterfall of icing.
Okay.
And it's like an icing waterfall. Yeah. And it's just mesmerizing. You watch the donuts come through. And so what we did was we actually turned that into a coupon. So we found out that they they have their own manufacturing facility in Winston-Salem where they actually build the machines themselves. And so we called them and said, hey, can you guys convert this and make it, make it to where the waterfall is different streams, or we could turn it into a UPC code. And so they were like, yeah, let us try it. So we went and shot that as a video. We created that with them. They built it. We shot it as a video, and then we ran that, and that ran across all their social channels as a coupon. But it was a mesmerizing coupon of donuts coming through the wall of donuts. I'll send you a link of it. And we did it for a fraction of what it would have cost to drop those FSIs into their top 4 to 7 markets, whatever that was.
You just explain FSIs to me.
Freestanding insert. So that's the little coupon sheet that goes into your Sunday paper here, where it's like there's 1,000 of them, and it's like, come get this pizza, buy one get one, that sort of thing. That was the actual assignment, was to do one of those. And so we ended up running it across all the social channels. It ended up being the second most engaged with post in Instagram in the world. Wow. The week that it ran. And all you had to do was walk in with your phone, and like, there's the video on your feed going, use me as the coupon. And that's just an example of it. But it was terrifying because we didn't know if it was going to work. We didn't know if it was going to work the entire time. So we were on a high wire the entire time, and the client was right there with us. They were great. I mean, they were holding hands with us going like, let's hope this works, and you work tirelessly to make it work. But that's an example to me of a really scary situation where like you're in danger of letting down a client in a huge way, And then the idea was, the safe answer was to do the boring drop the FSIs in the market. Mm-hmm. And we talked them into not doing that, into doing something else, And so you're having to have this sort of confidence of your own convictions there to go like that. We're going to make this work. We're going to make it happen. It's going to be cool. It ended up being Ad Age's digital campaign of the year, actually, as well.
I'm not surprised because I haven't seen the link yet. I can picture it. Because
I'll send it to you. Yeah. It's really beautiful, but it's so simple.
Yeah, but the thumbnail, etc., would be so brilliant. I can see it in my head because I know Krispy Kreme. I've eaten them, and I've never mind about that. So, okay, I think on leaving that brilliant note, I think we'll wrap it up, and I'll say David Baldwin from Baldwin, and thank you very much for being on Jelly Trumpet.
What a pleasure! Thank you so much for having me.